Do you feel that strange sensation as if you wake up every day and still find yourself at the same point, even though you're getting older, more experienced, and have seen more than before? Many call it bad luck, others call it fate. But in truth, it is something much more precise, something technical, something measurable. It is a frequency problem. Your life feels blocked, not because you have done anything wrong, but because your inner signal is no longer in sync with the field in which reality is created. Most people live their entire lives on a frequency that was never meant for them, and then wonder why everything is difficult, why decisions are exhausting, why doors don't open even when they seem to be doing everything right. The universe does not respond to words, wishes, or hope. It responds solely to vibration. Everything that exists is in motion, even what you perceive as solid and stable. Your body is vibration, your nervous system is vibration, your thoughts are electrical impulses with a clear frequency. Time, too, is not a line, but a field that reacts to resonance. When your inner frequency drops, reality begins to repeat itself, not as punishment, but as an echo. Stress, anxiety, constant worry, unresolved conflicts, and mental overload act like interference. They overlay your original signal and slowly disconnect you from the quantum field from which possibilities arise. Many people experience this state without being able to name it. They feel empty inside, yet overwhelmed, tired despite sleep, restless despite rest. Decisions feel difficult, intuition fades, and synchronicities disappear. This isn't a psychological problem, but interference. Like a radio that constantly statics even though the station is still active. The connection isn't broken, it's just out of tune. And this is precisely where the knowledge begins that hardly anyone shares because it is uncontrollable. There are certain frequencies that don't calm, but rather calibrate. One of them is 963 hertz. This frequency is often misunderstood as spiritual music or a relaxation tool. In reality, it's a reference signal, a reset code. It doesn't affect emotions, but rather perception. Specifically, it affects the pineal gland, that small organ in the center of the brain which has been described for millennia as the interface between inner and outer reality. Modern science calls it the endocrine system. Ancient teachings called it the third eye, but both describe the same principle, an antenna, a receiving unit. Over the course of a lifetime, this antenna becomes dampened, not randomly, but systematically. Artificial light, electromagnetic noise, chronic stress, lack of sleep, and emotional suppression all reduce its activity. The result is a person who functions but no longer receives. They live on the surface of reality, disconnected from depth, meaning, and direction. The 963 hertz frequency doesn't act like a medication here, but rather like a reset to factory settings. It doesn't force anything, it doesn't push anything forward. It simply brings the system back into resonance when the conditions are right. The application is deliberately simple, almost unspectacular. 15 minutes, no longer, no shorter. In the evening, just before sleep, when the mind slows down and defense mechanisms decrease. No wireless headphones, no Bluetooth connection, no unnecessary distortion, direct sound, pure transmission. The body must be able to receive the signal completely, without loss. You lie or sit quietly, eyes closed, breathing evenly. You don't try to visualize, you don't expect anything, you don't analyze anything. Expectation blocks the process. The system only responds to neutrality and readiness. Many don't report immediate visions, but rather subtle changes, clearer thoughts, more intense dreams, a sense of inner alignment. Decisions become easier without knowing why. Coincidences are increasing. Conversations arise at the right time. Solutions emerge without being sought. This is no miracle. This is resonance. When your frequency changes, the world doesn't change, but your access to it does. You suddenly see what was always there before, but unattainable. Many men over 55 feel something they can't express, not because they lack the words, but because no one has taught them to trust that feeling. It's this quiet knowing that life must be more than what is visible, more than routines, more than memories, more than simply functioning from one day to the next. This knowledge doesn't come from the mind, but from the depths. And it is precisely this depth that is controlled by frequency. If you live at a low frequency long enough, even the truth begins to feel uncomfortable. The old feels safe, even if it restricts you. The new feels dangerous, even if it would set you free. This isn't a character flaw, it's biology. Your nervous system adapts to what it receives daily. Chronic stress programs constriction, fear programs repetition, and repetition eventually feels like reality even though it is only a state. Most people try to change their lives through willpower. They think more, plan more, fight more, but in doing so, they reinforce the very signal that is blocking them. The universe doesn't respond to effort, but to coherence. If your inner system vibrates inconsistently, nothing in the external world can fall into place. Only when your inner frequency stabilizes does the field begin to respond. Not spectacularly, but precisely. 963 Hertz doesn't act as motivation. It acts as a reminder of what inner alignment feels like. Many report that after a while they want to talk less, explain less, and fight less. Things fall into place without being forced. Relationships change, priorities shift, and old fears lose their intensity. Not because they were fought, but because they no longer resonate. Some people experience more vivid dreams in the nights following the application. Not chaotic, but clearer and more structured. Dreams are not a product of chance. They are data processing. When the signal becomes cleaner, the processing also becomes more efficient. Others experience a slight pressure in their head or a warm sensation in the center of their forehead. This is not their imagination, it is activation. Quiet, subtle, without drama. The important thing is not to force anything, not to set a goal, not to expect a result. Expectation is a form of control, and control is a low vibrational state. Let the signal take effect. Let the system work. You don't have to do anything except be available. For many, that's harder than any technique. To become still, to remain open, and not to judge immediately. Over time, your relationship with time itself also changes. Days no longer feel the same. Some moments become more intense, others lighter. Decisions that used to take weeks are suddenly resolved in minutes. Not because you think faster, but because you perceive things more clearly. Reality begins to react to you instead of overwhelming you. That's the point at which many realize they were never truly blocked. They were simply out of tune. But therein lies the warning. This work is not for everyone. Because once perception opens up, it becomes difficult to fall back into old illusions. Some realize they have spent years in the wrong roles. Others sense that their environment no longer suits them. Truth is not comfort, it is clarity. And clarity demands responsibility. If you are willing to face this reflection, then something fundamental can change. Not overnight, not explosively, but quietly, steadily, irreversibly. Like a course correction that only becomes visible after some time, but then changes everything. Frequency is the key. Not as magic, but as physics. Not as belief, but as resonance. In the end, only one decision remains. Continue transmitting on the old frequency and hope that something changes. Or recalibrate the signal and watch as reality begins to respond differently. No one can guarantee what you'll see. But one thing is certain. When the noise disappears, there's no going back. Only clarity. And clarity changes everything.